I want to bring into our coverage Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. He's the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, it's great to see you.
Good to see you, too. I mean, it's insane what's happening today, but we have to understand this is a very dangerous moment and a very dangerous president.
You posted this today, quote, Donald Trump has lost his mind and his threats to wipe out the Iranian people should be taken seriously. He's out of control, and his cabinet and those around him must be loyal to the Constitution and invoke the 25th Amendment. He must be removed. What's interesting in all the talk about checks and balances, and Tim Snyder has a beautiful post, truly written for the history books today, about how Trump has already changed us. I mean, to your point, this is a deranged conversation to be having. What's going to happen at 8? Is the madman going to be as crazy as the madman said he was going to be? Is he going to end civilization? The Constitution lacks all that emotion, all the political petulance of our current politics. It's black and white. And I wonder what constitutional issues you think are getting lost in all this.
Well, first, what I think people need to understand is we have someone who's completely unfit for office right now, sitting in the White House with the ability to launch war, who is now threatening to essentially nuke or destroy an entire country and people. So from a constitutional perspective, we are in a crisis. And I think the moment, first and foremost, requires Congress to be in session. And the idea that Mike Johnson let Congress out, that everyone is back in their districts, and he won't open the doors of the House floor so we can actually have a war powers resolution, a debate, that we're not marching on the steps right now of the White House, that we're not demanding that he is removed from office by his own cabinet, which they have a constitutional responsibility to do, is where this country is at right now. It's crazy that we are not taking stronger action against this president. It is crazy that the Republican Party, including his Senate and members in Congress, are saying absolutely nothing. And we have a president threatening to destroy an entire population of people in a war that we have no clear mission. We have no idea why we're still there. And the president is out there saying crazy things over the weekend, on Easter, today, and yet the Republican Party and the Speaker, who control our government, are doing absolutely nothing.
When you learned through the New York Times pretty careful reporting there inside the Situation Room that the cabinet was ambivalent, the vice president was opposed, and the intelligence leader described the Israeli objectives as, quote, farcical, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs said it is typical Israeli. They oversell. Rubio translated for Trump and called it, quote, bullshit. What do you make of the things that he says at all? I mean, how detached from his own national security officials do you think his public statements are?
Well, it's clear that President Trump rather listen to Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel than he does to his own people or to his own advisors and the public that are actually struggling. Gas is skyrocketing. People's healthcare costs are going up. And we're right now in a war in Iran because the prime minister of Israel essentially got the president to join in an attack. There is no national security purpose. There was no imminent threat in front of us. And that has been laid out by military leaders, people in the intelligence community. There is no reason for us to have gone in there with no actual mission or plan. And now we are seeing right now what happens when you actually don't have any type of mission, no involvement from the Congress, no input from the American public. And the president right now seems to essentially be tweeting out, putting out on Truth Social whatever he wants. And we're out here reacting, not in D.C., without any sort of Congress that is actually being the check and balance that it's supposed to be in the Constitution. So I hope that the Republican Party understands how serious the moment is and that we've been dragged into a war that we should not be in.
Several people who've been on this hour think that both Trump's pattern, I think in the markets they call it taco, Trump always chickens out, as well as whatever guardrails remain in the military, mean that the threats he's issued are not what will pass at 8 p.m. But what do you rule in the category of possible in about 3 hours and 15 minutes?
I think that Trump has lost his mind. He's not capable of being the president, and he should be removed using the 25th Amendment immediately. Separate of that, I don't trust anything that man or the people around him actually do. He has proven to be the most corrupt person to ever be president, the most criminal person to ever be president. He could care less about humanity or the destruction of another country. And so I think at this moment, it is up to also the good men in our military, men and women that serve this country, those in leadership, to not take orders to destroy and kill more people. And we have a responsibility, not just his cabinet, but those that are guarding our security and the security of so many around the world, to also do the right thing. And I think many of us are encouraging, and there are a lot of conversations happening across our military as well about ensuring that we do not take this bait, that we are not led to a horrific disaster by Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump, and that we actually do the right thing, and that we stand for humanity, that we actually turn back this horrific moment in time that we're in, and that we come together as a country and recognize that we have somebody completely unfit and unprepared to be president. And that's got to be dealt with immediately.
Congressman Robert Garcia, thank you for your time today.